All right. It feels like strange because on one hand, we had spring break. On the other hand, I was here every day and some of the students were meeting because we wanted to. On the third hand, I don't know what we're breaking from. How is everybody? What's going on in your lives?
Nothing. We've been stuck at home.
I kind of walked into that one, didn't I?
I
Well, staying at home isn't the same for everyone. How are you doing with it?
don't like it.
Yeah. Well, points for honesty. I don't know too many people who are super excited to be like stuck. So I know you're an athlete. What are you doing to work out?
I was just in the garage, every morning, every night, same routine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. How's everybody else doing?
Well, well.
Yeah, I hear the amazing, overwhelming, positive energy, and I do understand it. Um, I do sincerely hope, and it's a very humble offering because, um, you know, we're in this weird position that the school didn't predict, that frankly, a lot of people are not prepared for. And I don't want to come across as, hey, everything's great and you should feel great too. So I want to make sure that we understand each other when I say what I'm about to say. We still need to find ways to make sure that we're keeping our minds right. And whether that's a minute of mindfulness or whatever practice you have, blasting music, making yourself feel good, um, eating right, exercising, sleeping, that all sounds like a lecture. I don't mean it that way. I just care about you. And for all the things I'm not able to do, I'm hoping that those little bits help. And as always, if I can be, I'm here for you. So I just want you to know that. I did
Thank
post
you.
today a reminder about the grading policies because it's amazing to me. I collaborated with students. I got clear on it, I thought, but some people are getting confused by messages from their other teachers. So if anyone has any questions about grade or credit or anything else, please let me know. Um, my own standard, if you were my kids, and in a way I feel like you are, but if you were my kids, what I would be saying is, I don't know how colleges and universities are going to look at this moment exactly. So I would still be shooting for the best possible grades you can get in every single course you're taking. And if that means an extra email or Zoom call with a teacher to say, hey, what can I do? I can't imagine that not being a welcome conversation. And if you have challenges, I'm certainly here to help. If you're taking the AP exam, don't forget we've got a meeting this Friday at 2. If you haven't been following along with the book, you might want to take a look at the post that I put up today about the end game for the semester now that we're coming back from spring break. Ordinarily, this would be the place where we would start getting into the big questions like as the sole focus of the class. Obviously, right now, people are all over the map. So I'm going to be supporting, once we finish the book, we'll be analyzing the essay that I wrote, and I posted that link already, but I'll repost that. And then you'll be writing your own. I'm looking for excuses to give people A's and B's. So I'm hoping that you take a look back at what I wrote with students about our grading policy in this class. And whatever your goal is, I want to help you get there. So let me just pause because sometimes I go on for a couple of paragraphs. How was all that to hear? And does anybody have any questions before we get into the reading? God, it's like in class.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it was really nothing. It was pretty straightforward.
Okay, good. I'm trying to make things as simple as I possibly can because I know the rest of life is so complicated. So at any point, if you need anything at all, let me know. Now, if you haven't been following along, I know Deanna, you were online last week, and Bernardita and Odalise. I'm going to shift into gallery view so I can see everybody who's here. Anybody want to sum up what's happened and where we left off?
I can sum up where we left off, but I don't know from where we left off when we before we went on break.
Well, everybody was at a different point, Deanna, so don't sweat that. I posted on the blog, we're about 20 pages from the end of the book now. So why don't you just sum up the last piece of what you remember from Friday and we'll pick up from there.
Well, we know that Montag is on the run now because Beatty kind of like caught him. Oh, he killed Beatty, by the way, if you guys don't know. But he's on the run now, and he's like trying to like escape, and so like escape the hound, and so he finally like made it out, and like he's like in nature now, and he's just running on his own. And where we left off really was like he was walking, and like he ran into this like group of people like outside of like his city or his society, and like met these other people, like, and like he can't really like tell, like, I don't know how to explain it, like he's still on edge from everything that's happened to him, so he doesn't really trust everything, but he's still like discovering new things that are out there.
Yeah, good. Actually, great description, Deanna. So the only parts I would add to that were that the feel of him getting away, and he killed Beatty in a really brutal fashion. You know, if you're a savage, you may not want to miss that part. You want to go back and take a look at the description. But after that moment, he not only takes off, and obviously he's got all the stress of a man who's being hunted for his life, but also he's being followed by a mechanical hound. And then when he goes to Faber's house, because that's his first stop, he realizes that they're turning the chase into a reality show on television or on the screens that people watch. Now, at that point, the news was just the news. Like in real life America in the 50s, the news was a recap of what happened that day. There was no speculation or trying to get inside a politician's head like you see so much now. And there was definitely no live coverage of a chase. Like, you know, that was the first one that I can really remember was OJ. And so in a way, this is Bradbury predicting the future again. But Montag makes it to the river, and he goes underwater. The hound and the helicopters that were all following him seem to go a different direction, and he floats downstream. But now, as Deanna just said, he's finding these people who were sitting around a fire. And this fire seems symbolically different. Does anyone remember how it's different? Because fire's been a theme throughout the book, right?
Yeah, this kind of fire, it felt like warmth, and it didn't smell like kerosene. Like he felt it, like it was different to him.
Yeah, it wasn't burning in a destructive way. It was actually like warming and illuminating. So let's pick up, because all of a sudden, someone said, "You can come out now." And it scared the crap out of Montag. Montag stepped back in the shadows. "It's all right," the voice said. "You're welcome here." Montag walked slowly toward the fire and the 5 old men sitting there, dressed in dark blue denim pants and jackets and dark blue shirts. He did not know what to say to them. "Sit down," said the man, who seemed to be the leader of the small group. "Have some coffee?" He watched the dark, steaming mixture pour into a collapsible tin cup, which was handed him straight off. He sipped it gingerly and felt them looking at him with curiosity. His lips were scalded, but that was good. The faces around him were bearded, but the beards were clean, neat, and their hands were clean. They had stood up as if to welcome a guest, and now they sat down again. Montag sipped. "Thanks," he said. "Thanks very much." Now, already these people are different than the other people we've met in the book. The only other social gathering that we saw really was with Mildred's friends. How would you compare that in terms of behavior? Did these men behave like Mildred's friends did, or was it different?
It's way different.
Way different. How would you describe that, Deanna?
Like with Mildred's friends, like they didn't really like care too much about each other. They kind of just like repeated whatever one of the other said. They're like, "Oh, it's good. Oh, it's good," you know, or something like that. And like these people are like actually caring, and like they seem like, you know, like they're like, well, they handed him like coffee and stuff like that, and they like welcomed him. Whereas like Mildred's friends were just kind of like not really friends, not really caring about one another.
Yeah, and in that moment, you know, on the one hand, it's almost like these men are behaving like all of our parents would want us to behave, right? With manners and respect and care. But apart from being proper, it's really interesting to make the connection between those manners and actually caring for each other as people. So does anyone know why people wave to say hello? Do you know where that tradition comes from? Anybody
No.
want to guess? So in old days, you would be on a road to go someplace. And for a moment, if you encountered another person, you wouldn't know if they were a friend or if they were going to steal from you or hurt you. And so waving usually with the right hand, would be a way to show that you weren't carrying a weapon and that you were coming in friendship. So every little mannerism, like standing up when someone comes into the room, is a gesture not only of like formality, but it's also like letting you know that I see you and I care about how you're feeling right now. So you can relax and we can be friendly together. By the way, not for nothing, if you ever get stopped by a police officer while you're driving, it's good to keep these things in mind. Most people, you know, if you've ever taken driver's training or does anybody have a driver's license? Okay, well, when you take the test, it's going to ask you, if you ever get stopped, where should you put your hands on the steering wheel? Does anybody want to guess?
On top of the steering wheel?
Okay, on top, right? And so normally that's like 10 and 2 o'clock, right? Now, imagine a police officer walking toward you, and I don't know if this is coming in mirror or not, but I'm pointing over my left shoulder because the driver's side window would be here, and the police officer is walking toward me. Now, if my hands are at 10 and 2 o'clock, he can see this one. Can he see this one?
Mm-mm.
No, because he's looking through my body, right? Now, if I'm thinking about the police officer, I'm thinking, you know, every single time a police officer makes a traffic stop, they're actually risking their lives because they don't know what they're going to be dealing with. So if I think about that and I put my hands both over here, and if I hook my thumbs so that they can see my fingers and I'm not holding anything, do you think that might have a relaxing effect on the police officer so they don't have to worry about something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So manners are also a way to start a conversation with less tension and maybe even, I'm not saying I actually have, no, I am going to say I actually have gotten out of a ticket that way. So you might want to think about how these things matter in real life. There's your tip for the day. So Montag sees these people and says, thanks. Thanks very much. You're welcome, Montag. My name's Granger. He held out a small bottle of colorless fluid. Drink this too. It'll change the chemical index of your perspiration. Half an hour from now, you'll smell like two other people. With the hound after you, the best thing is bottoms up. Montag drank the bitter fluid. You'll stink like a bobcat, but that's all right, said Granger. You know my name, said Montag. Granger nodded to a portable battery TV set by the fire. We've watched the chase. Figured you'd wind up south along the river. When we heard you plunging around out in the forest like a drunken elk, we didn't hide as we usually do. We figured you were in the river when the helicopter cameras swung back in over the city. Something funny there. The chase is still running. The other way, though. The other way? Let's have a look. Granger snapped the portable viewer on. The picture was a nightmare, condensed, easily passed from hand to hand in the forest, all whirring color and flight. A voice cried, "The chase continues north in the city. Police helicopters are converging on Avenue 87 in Elk Grove Park." Granger nodded. They're faking. You threw them off at the river. They can't admit it. They know they can hold their audience only so long. The show's got to have a snap ending, quick. If they started searching the whole damn river, it might take all night. So they're sniffing for a scapegoat to end things with a bang. Watch. They'll catch Montag in the next 5 minutes. But how? Watch. The camera, hovering in the belly of a helicopter, now swung down at an empty street. See that? Whispered Granger. It'll be you. Right up at the end of that street is our victim. See how our camera is coming in? Building the scene. Suspense. Long shot. Right now, some poor fellow is out for a walk. A rarity. An odd one. Don't think the police don't know the habits of queer ducks like that. Men who walk mornings for the hell of it, or for reasons of insomnia. Sound like anyone reread this year?
The pedestrian.
Yeah. Anyway, the police have had him charted for months, years. Never know when that sort of information might be handy. And today, it turns out, it's very usable indeed. It saves face. Oh God, look there. The men at the fire bent forward. On the screen, a man turned a corner. The mechanical hound rushed forward into the viewers suddenly. The helicopter lights shot down a dozen brilliant pillars that built a cage all about the man. A voice cried, "There's Montag. The search is done." The innocent man stood bewildered. a cigarette burning in his hand. He stared at the hound, not knowing what it was. He probably never knew. He glanced up at the sky and the wailing sirens. The camera rushed down. The hound leapt up into the air with a rhythm and a sense of timing that was incredibly beautiful. Its needle shot out. It was suspended for a moment in their gaze, as if to give the vast audience time to appreciate everything. The raw look of the victim's face, the empty street, the steel animal, a bullet nosing the target. "Montag, don't move," said a voice from the sky. The camera fell upon the victim, even as did the hound. Both reached him simultaneously. The victim was seized by hound and camera in a great spidering, clenching grip. He screamed. He screamed. He screamed. Blackout. Silence. Darkness. Montag cried out in the silence and turned away. Silence. And then, after a time of the men sitting around the fire, their faces expressionless, an announcer on the dark screen said, "The search is over. Montag is dead. A crime against society has been avenged." Darkness. "We now take you to the sky room of the Hotel Lux for a half hour of Just Before Dawn, a program of..." Granger turned it off. They didn't show the man's face in focus, did you notice? Even your best friends couldn't tell if it was you. They scrambled it just enough to let the imagination take over. "Hell," he whispered, "hell." Montag said nothing, but now, looking back, sat with his eyes fixed to the blank screen, trembling. Granger touched Montag's arm. "Welcome back from the dead." Montag nodded. Granger went on. "You might as well know all of us now. This is Fred Clement, former occupant of the Thomas Hardy Chair at Cambridge in the years before it came an atomic engineering school. The other is Dr. Simmons from UCLA, a specialist in Ortega v. Gasset. Professor West here did quite a bit for ethics." What's ethics? Do you guys know? Ethics
I've
is
heard
the, oh, go ahead.
work. No,
Sorry.
I've just heard like work ethics. I don't know what exactly it means. I thought it was like how like you, I don't know.
Yeah, so work ethic is what people are reminding you of when they're lecturing you to get your job done, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, ethic is really our moral approach to what we do. So it's guided by what we think is right and proper and wrong. So when you say ethics in general, it's really morality in action. When you say work ethic, it's sort of a guilty reminder to do what you're responsible for. But all of these professors have something in common. So I want you to listen to these descriptions and I want to come back to it. Reverend Pat over here gave few lectures 30 years ago and lost his flock between one Sunday and the next for his views. He's been bumming with us for some time now. Myself, I wrote a book called The Fingers in the Glove, the proper relationship between the individual and society, and here I am. Welcome, Montag. "I don't belong with you," said Montag at last, slowly. "I've been an idiot all the way. What do all of these people have in common?" Why does Montag says he feels dumb and like he doesn't belong with them?
They're all like educated, like I don't know. They're all educated, like have educated professions, and he's just like a fireman from the society.
Yeah, exactly. So these are all professors and pastors and authors, and Montag feels like they're like way above his pay grade. There's something else interesting here. So Thomas Hardy was a novelist, and it says Fred Clement was former occupant of the Thomas Hardy Chair at Cambridge. Cambridge is a university in England, before it became an atomic engineering school. Ray Bradbury predicted some of what's happened in our education system too. There's a whole lot of emphasis on STEM, right? So a lot of people are aware of things like science and engineering. Not so much when it comes to things like English literature or philosophy or the arts. Are you guys getting that too? And as you research and prepare for college?
Yeah, there's like a lot of more like scientific programs more than like English type.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
I feel like because that just became like the more focused, like engineering and a lot of those. Because the technology, it keeps evolving, and everybody just wants to be a part of it.
Yeah, I think that's true. What do you think about the emphasis on careers in education? Has
I
that
think
been
that
a big
that
part of
could,
this?
yeah, I think that's like a really huge part of it is because like when people think of going to college, they think of the major that they're going to study is what's going to become their like career or their job. And
Hmm.
so like if they study something in like liberal arts or something, it's kind of harder to get a job in that kind of field or a well-paying job in that kind of field versus like a STEM related field where becoming because they're becoming more and more like in need of now, I guess, or like I don't know how to explain that.
Yeah, I think you're right. Does anyone know what Steve Jobs majored in or studied or even where he went to college? This is kind of a fun one. I don't expect you to know the answer to this, but the reason I'm bringing it up is because when people talk about STEM, they're usually talking about like what'll get you paid or make you good money or help you keep up, like Destiny was saying, with the changing technology of the time. Steve Jobs went to Reed College, which is a liberal arts school in Oregon. And it's like the most liberal arts schools of liberal arts schools you could possibly imagine. It's like a tiny little Eastern university on the West Coast. And he didn't study computer science. In fact, he didn't even graduate. He studied things like calligraphy. Do you know what calligraphy is?
Isn't it like that type of handwriting?
Yeah. What do you think the connection is between calligraphy and what became Apple computers and changed our entire culture?
I feel like just the creativity behind it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And an appreciation for what was beautiful and
yeah.
simple and elegant, right? So it's interesting to me because as I read this book, again, from 70 years ago, I think about the changes and how important it is not only to preserve our own sense of self. And if you notice, we have that image of the hand again, right? This Granger guy, what's his book called? The Fingers in the Glove, the individual in society. So as we think about what it takes to relate to society, most of us are told how to follow the rules and how to get the rewards that people think we want. But we're never really taught how to develop ourselves in a way that we could actually contribute something meaningful or something beautiful. And I don't know how Steve Jobs got that chip exactly, but that's a big part of the message of this book. So Montag says, I don't belong with you. And they say, we're used to that. We all made the right kind of mistakes, or we wouldn't be here. When we were separate individuals, all we had was rage. I struck a fireman when he came to burn my library years ago. I've been running ever since. You want to join us, Montag? Yes. Oh, and not for nothing, the flavor of the moment in our culture today, when people are alone and feel separate and they're not getting help, how would you describe that? A Martian lands tomorrow and says, wow, what kind of a mood are Americans in today? Are they happy?
Nope.
So how would you describe it?
Not welcoming.
Yeah. Well, rage is what got my attention. I think you're right. A lot of people who feel like they're out on their own right now because their business is gone or their jobs are gone, they're feeling a sense of real frustration and resentment that can turn into rage. So you want to join us, Montag? Yes. What have you to offer? Nothing. I thought I had part of the book of Ecclesiastes and maybe a little of Revelation, but I haven't even that now. The book of Ecclesiastes would be fine. Where is it? Here. Montag touched his head. Ah. Granger smiled and nodded. What's wrong? Isn't that all right? Said Montag. Better than all right. Perfect. Granger turned toward the Reverend. Do we have a book of Ecclesiastes? One. A man named Harris in Youngstown. Montag. Granger took Montag's shoulder firmly. Walk carefully. Guard your health. If anything should happen to Harris, you are the book of Ecclesiastes. See how important you've become in this last minute? But I've forgotten. No, nothing's ever lost. We have ways to shake down your clinkers for you. But I've tried to remember. Don't try. It'll come when we need it. All of us have photographic memories, but spend a lifetime learning how to block off the things that are really in there. Simmons here has worked on it for 20 years, and now we've got the method down to where we can recall anything that's been read once. Would you like someday, Montag, to read Plato's Republic? Of course. I am Plato's Republic. Like to read Marcus Aurelius? Mr. Simmons is Marcus. How do you do? Said Mr. Simmons. Hello. said Montag. I want you to meet Jonathan Swift, the author of that evil political book, Gulliver's Travels. And this other fellow is Charles Darwin, and this one is Schopenhauer, and this one is Einstein, and this one here at my elbow is Mr. Albert Schweitzer, a very kind philosopher indeed. Here we all are, Montag, Aristophanes and Mahatma Gandhi and Gautama Buddha and Confucius and Thomas Love Peacock and Thomas Jefferson and Mr. Lincoln, if you please. We are also Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Everyone laughed quietly. It can't be, said Montag. It is, replied Granger, smiling. We're book burners too. We read the books and burnt them, afraid they'd be found. Microfilming didn't pay off. We were always traveling. We didn't want to bury the film and come back later. Always the chance of discovery. Better to keep it in the old heads where no one can see it or suspect it. We are all bits and pieces of history and literature and international law. Byron, Tom Paine, Machiavelli, or Christ, it's all here. And the hour is late, and the war has begun. And we are out here, and the city is there, all wrapped up in its own coat of 1,000 colors. What do you think, Montag? I'm going to pause there for the moment and ask you, what is he talking about? What are they doing?
Well, if I got this correct, I think what they're trying to say is they all got these books and they all started reading them, getting all the knowledge from them, and then obviously burning the books after the discovery. So I'm guessing what they're trying to say is after reading all these books, they get the knowledge that the people in the past had basically turning them into that person per se. Like they have the knowledge of that person.
Spot on, Destiny. So you see all these books behind me?
Yes.
House could catch fire. Someone could come in the night and take them all. They're a thing. But what I've remembered in here, nobody gets to take. That to me is the whole point that I came back for to teach. Because what I saw happening was some of what Ray Bradbury was predicting, that students weren't actually realizing what was important about the books. Like Faber said earlier in this book, it's not the books themselves, it's what's in the books. So whether that is a philosophy that helps guide a life or a government model that helps guide a civilization or an enchanted image that can take you, we started this conversation by talking about how we're stuck at home. When I was a kid, part of the reason I fell in love with books is I can just look at that bookcase behind me and I can see the spines and the titles, and I can go on a dozen trips in 5 minutes without ever moving a limb. So Montag has met these people who have actually remembered enough that they can not only quote the books, but they can explain what they mean and why they're important. How does that hit you?
It's pretty crazy because then you realize that it is true, and we never really thought about it. We just read the books. That's about it. We just read the books, not really knowing what they were doing.
Well, the good news, it's Monday, and you can remember this as the craziest way a high school student ever managed to celebrate 420 by actually connecting with real knowledge and thinking about how their life might look from here on. How's that for an honest acknowledgement?
Definitely.
Does anybody have any closing comments or questions before we break for the day? All right. I'm going to go ahead and post this recording. And, oh, by the way, I'll give you a little bit of a spoiler, a preview of coming attractions. The post that you'll see on today's blog entry is actually what I'm thinking is going to be the bare bones of the essay that we're going to write together as we finish the book. So doing that post on today's agenda is actually going to help give you a little bit of a sense so that when we finish the book, talk about my essay, and I roll it out formally, we can practice along the way and I can give you the support you need. So if you're here on this meeting, you win. If you're a person who's looking at the recording afterwards and you got this far, you win, but I want to let you know that ahead of time. I'm going to go ahead and post a recording, and the post should be up in about half an hour. And if anybody needs to get a hold of me, you know where to find me, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
All right, thank you.
Okay, bye everybody.
Bye.
Stay safe.